There it is there and go live here. Those of you who've already popped onto Bridges Live with my Apple Live podcast, thank you for coming on. This is Bridges Live. This is actually Dr. Paul and Black Coffee Conversation. We are going to have an amazing conversation with some of my brothers here in the mental health community. So we are going to talk about what the things we can do and what the things that we're going through. They are not all the same. And I thoroughly believe that Black men are not listening and taking in the fact that we're broken. We're broken as a community. We're broken as men. There's a lot of stuff on our shoulders. We tend to go to drugs, alcohol, and dismissive things. We tend to not raise our young boys. I do have a mentoring group. We talk on this monthly about, I think, how we drop the ball as men passing on to men. But we want to talk about mental health today. So let's open up. Let's talk about, start from you, Dr. Davis.
Mhm.
Let's start from how is the Black men that you have seen and talked to in your profession, what are you seeing?
I'm seeing a lot of stress, kind of like a vault opening, and so before COVID and before all the exposure of the police brutality, I was seeing um, a lot of brothers coming to my practice talking about this and then going back out into their spaces and not being validated. Sometimes even in the home, they don't feel like they can go to their significant others. They can't tell their children, so they're keeping it all to themselves. And then they can't sleep. A lot of physiological symptoms: agitation, grinding their teeth, snapping at work, feeling lethargic, et cetera, et cetera. But since COVID is hit and since police brutality has been exposed, it's like a vault. And a lot of us mental health professionals, we were concerned that we weren't going to get any clientele. But now with Zoom and everyone being more accessible, I'm not only getting more calls from people in the Bay Area, the Oakland, San Francisco area, but I'm getting calls from all over the nation from Black men because for once they're still a little hesitant to open up and reach out, but for once, I, I think something's been exposed, right? The system, this institutional racist system, has been exposed, at least on the police brutality level. So people are feeling validated and they're reaching out more, and some of them are just coming in. I had a brother just last week who came on a Zoom. He just cried almost the whole 60 minutes. It was like the wind could blow and just tears for giving. People are starting to feel that they have some permission to open up a little bit and there's some safer spaces. That's what I'm seeing in my practice.
That's great because with people I've seen or and have heard, a lot of black men have a hard time opening up. They feel
Yes.
they're very constricted or feel restricted, like they don't have the room. I think that's what it is. They don't have the room to open up in their lives. Kelly, what do you think about all that?
So um, I, I one think that definitely this barrier or this wall that's tied to socialization and the stigma that's tied to mental health really creates a narrative, particularly for males and especially for black males, to not show up outside of being. Now, COVID has given us permission for those who have not been aligned with
So,
this thought process that if you look back beyond 400 years, we have always been nurturers and providers,
Mm-hmm.
protectors and
mm,
supporters. And
mhm.
so just being in this space and in this time and looking at all the people who have essentially said they sick and tired of being sick and tired of. And so you got guys like Jason Wilson, who's also a martial arts specialist, who wrote a book called Cry Like a Man.
Mm.
and it's a #1 bestseller. So I know, Jason, we do work around black male achievement, and being in that space, just giving out these books so people can understand that there are a lot of people who are suffering. Athletes are coming out.
Yes.
Let's talk about Herschel Walker. If we want to go way back, Jamal Adams, and all these individuals who have expressed like, I am so overwhelmed, I'm frustrated, and then warriors. I, both you and I both served in the military. I gave 25 years. Once upon a time, I couldn't say, like, and I'll be upfront and honest on the show with everybody. Like, I suffered with PTSD,
Yep.
anxiety. Any human being who goes to war, especially as many times as I did, and who did what we did, Doc, on a continuous basis, the brain and the human body was not set up or designed to deal with that level of trauma
Right.
without purging and releasing those things. I use meditation and some other practices to help me with it. But many of us have even been taught that those things were taboo until here recently,
Yeah.
where they're trending and it's sexy now. So
Mhm.
I agree completely with what Frank was just speaking on.
Yes, sir.
And Roger, and let's talk about how, so many people, not only all types of people, black men, how they went to the substance issue to try to alleviate this pain. And a lot of black men have been in pain, like Frank said, for a long time. But I'm glad they're now starting to. I'm glad they called him up, they answered, and they're like, hey, and just cry. So how are you seeing it down where you are?
Well, what I'm seeing here, first of all, thank you for having me on. What I'm seeing around here, people do, that's what they run to. That's their go-to thing. Drinking and drugging. Alcohol, as we know, suppress a whole lot of things and hides a whole lot of feelings and emotions. But once it comes out and you recognize it, the guys around here, this is what they do. That's most people around here, they run to alcohol and drugs. And I think that's so sad to come to a fellow man, and which is they lack of in your community. They lack of black men, of lack leadership in your community. So therefore, that's what they run to. And I think the way we got to get it back, you got to get them to open up a little and say there's another way.
Mhm.
Everybody don't have everybody to run to, and we as black men hate to it's a sign of weakness to try to get help or ask for help from someone. So they'll feel like, okay, I can get this, and it's just numbing the pain. But all in all, they're just creating another problem for themselves down the road.
So Frank, is one of the things, the people who are coming to you are opening up. How can, with black mental health, and this is what I'm trying to champion here with black community mental health, we have a lot of branches that are broken for all type of traumatic reasons, post-traumatic slave disorder, just PTSD. Like like Kelly said, I had to heal myself from PTSD and go through the different living sciences about how to heal. But we need to go to someone. And there are black men walking around with such a heavy weight, and they're not getting the help they need. And I've said this before, if the black community is a relationship, we are getting a divorce for hundreds of years, and we need to stay together. This is not a relationship we can just separate from. So what do you think we could do to champion the cause of having black men say, hey, it's okay, cry, raise your hand, get help, and break down in that safe space?
Yeah, good question. I think more things like what we're doing. To be honest, I get fulfillment just being around 3 other positive black men. That's nurturing. Brother
Yeah.
Kelly mentioned an important word. I think we have to break those barriers, those stigmas of what it means to be a black man, and we still are. We were nurturers in the past, and somehow that got repressed through years of oppression and slavery and being pigeonholed that we're only strong and macho and stoic. And in reality, we need to kind of reintegrate and those repressed parts of ourselves, particularly the nurturer and the compassion that we have. And I think it might help too for us to again have some kind of platform um, in social media that's just mental health friendly, and we need to validate. There is, as you were saying, with post traumatic slave disorder, not too long ago, Tuskegee experiment, we were experimented on by the mental health community a
Yeah.
couple of 100 years ago, physically, not just in lobotomies, and they have research that back in the 70s. Uh, they did research where more often than not, a Black person could come in experiencing stress, and a psychiatrist or mental health professional had more of a tendency to diagnose him or her as schizophrenic. Whereas if a non-Black person, typically a white patient, came in, they would diagnose that person with stress and depression, and they get psychotherapeutic treatment, whereas we would be misdiagnosed and with like a real severe diagnosis. So that tentativeness is real and valid, and so we just have to show them that narrative, and show them that things have changed. I think these systems have to recruit and continue to vigorously recruit more African American students in mental health schools. Like at UC Berkeley, finally, UC Berkeley has a Black president. So
I know.
those are the kind of thing exactly that they're going to reintegrate some form of affirmative action. And that went away for years, and all because of all the politics. So I think at the systematic level that has to happen, and then at the community level, we just have to be mental health friendly and kind of destigmatize. Easier said than done, because there's still other forces at play that push Black men into these these corners of toxic masculinity. But if there's a will, there's a way. And I think the system on one level has really broken, the hierarchy has broken down because of lack of presidential leadership, and that's really been exposed and broken down in a certain way.
You had said something about developing from an age, and Kelly, you work with a lot of young men, and how do you get your young men to you, or do you just snatch them off the street, or do you back growing up in New York, I remember people used to be what you call the sidewalk preachers, right? And they'd be standing on these things going like, hey brothers, you need to get your life together, you need to get, and that's not there no more. So how are you able to get these young men into your nonprofit to say, we need to break this system that you think you're in? And that's the matrix you're talking about. There's a system you think you're in that they got you in, that you can get out of if you break this and what's controlling here. Go ahead, Kelly.
So what I would say, Doc, is this: two things. One, I've committed my life in Charlotte to mental health, men and young people. So working in that mental health space as a leader, and then doing the national work around fatherhood, I have a reputation that allows these social workers, the therapists, the psychologists to automatically identify and refer people over to me. But more importantly, I'm in the community. So I'm not that type of person who speaks from a theoretical perspective yet don't understand the practical intersection where the two meet. So now they understand and know that like it's okay to be safe and vulnerable. And I'm always upfront and honest and share my experience and the fact that I made mistakes and that I was in them streets and I made bad choices and bad decisions. However, there came a chance, opportunity where I understood that I need to execute, and at that intersection of preparation and opportunity is where execution exists. And so those young men trust me. Those young men, I still have young men who are now like 30 something who come up. I haven't seen them in years. I just had experience the other day. A young lady said, hey, Mr. Little, because I left, I was on a deployment, and she said, when you left, this place went crazy. But I wanted to tell you, because I thought I'd never see you, I made it. And it was those encouraging words that you said. And you were a manager. However, you were spending time with us. And that time actually paid off. So I think reputation and how you, Maya Angelou said it perfectly. People will forget what you say. They'll forget what you do, but they will never forget how you make them feel. It's all tied to culture, right? If we understand the culture and emotional intelligence, which IQ is pushed in our school system, but it's really EQ. And if we can embrace that and just be vulnerable with young people, they'll come to you. It's like a magnet.
Now, Roger, one of the things I know as Black older men is that we have a history. Let's not get it twisted. We grew up in neighborhoods. We have been faced with the police officer. We have been faced with racism, and people see us now as professionals like, oh, it never happened to you. As our history, as we bring our history and our culture to the meeting with the other, how do you help explain to that brother, that Black man, saying, I got you?
First, I would say, you got to humble yourself, because we are target, regardless how professional we get. We can wear a suit and tie. We'll still got a bullseye on our back. It doesn't matter. Woo. So now you just do not make that light brighter though by you sitting up there. I don't have nothing against the dreadlocks and the stuff like that, but things that's going on today, do not put a bigger sign on your back. But you bridge the gap between, you tell this young man, first of all, you educate yourself, because you got to play the same games that they're playing. They taught you over here, they bring you over here, they do that, now play by the rules. You know what I mean? Now, but you always educate yourself. But you would tell this young man, and like I tell the guys around here, you have to think about what you're doing in life, because what they're doing, they're trying to kill us off anyway. But the thing is, sit there, think about what you're doing and where you want to go forward in life. And just keep yourself out of harm's way, because they're sitting here, they want a reason for you to go to jail, because they more people in prison, Black men anywhere, than in college. So that you just doing them a favor once you do that stuff like that. And you just sit there, get your education, and try to make a better living for yourself. Because most of us have grown up without the family, without the father, a Black male in your family.
Now, Roger, I'm going to do a pushback here, and then and I have not for a really significant reason. Mm-hmm. How do I know what I need if I've never been taught what I truly need? Right. Mm-hmm. So now my environment told me what I am. Okay. My environment told me what I need to do to survive. Right. That's what the environment taught me. The education taught me nothing about who I was, and the education that was taught in school was purposely false. Okay. Now, my experiences have cultivated me into my lower realm of brain development, so I never got good cognitive development. So how do I know that I'm even broken when I hunt, I eat, and I got a roof over my head? I'm good. Now, Dr. Davis, that's a problem when they don't even know they're broken.
And that was question, Dr. Davis? He was recording.
Here we go. Can you see me?
I can see you now.
Okay, I froze. What was it? Where did we leave off?
Well, we left off if the young Black man doesn't know he's broken because he's surviving this game. He's got his game face on. He's rolling in whatever he's rolling in, and he doesn't know how fractured he is.
Great question. Yeah, me and some of my mentors, sometimes we call it confrontation or street therapy, and because a lot of times you'll get them and they'll either not think something's wrong because they're a product of that environment, and it is a leap of faith and risk to put all your life and vulnerability, even if it's in another professional black man's hands that you don't know, when you've relied upon, you know, pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, and you think you survived and you think you're healthy. So it's kind of like taking that goldfish out of that tank. They don't know what it is, because they think they think they're healthy. So a lot of times in my work there is an element of confrontation. Sometimes I call it street therapy, but it's not hostile or violent. It's sometimes, oftentimes, when I get in a brother's face and it might feel a little volatile, he typically knows after that catharsis, like, I'm establishing that healthy bond or attachment. Because then what you see behind that bravado or that defensiveness is a lot of fragility and a lot of wounds. And when I start noticing that, I usually is I'm definitely not a traditional therapist. I don't take that traditional approach of sitting back, quiet, Freudian. Oh, sit back and let them. I'm like, no, brother, wait, no, you came late. You talking crazy. You see what my sign says. It says no cell phones in the waiting room. So I'm doing the therapy all the time, and that's jolting to them, and a lot of times they buck up against that, but then they 99 times out of 100 they feel comforted after, because they haven't had that experience, because people are afraid of them, or family or not, people are afraid of them or have written them off. So what they get, they don't always get it consciously, but they get some level, they get jolted by that experience. And then, just like Brother Roger and Brother Kelly was saying, when you show your own vulnerability and when you show them some force in a loving, nurturing way, they're texting me or calling me, when's our next appointment? And so I think it does take that level of engagement. Maybe confrontation is not the right word, but I think an intense level of engagement that has a nurturing quality. I do think that's what a lot of them need, because how else are they going to get a wake-up call that the way they've been operating in that goldfish tank is not the way? That they're in survival mode. They don't know, and we know how it is. We've all either had, I know I've had PTSD and deal with it. So we know how it is when you're in survival mode. Your cortisol levels are fluctuating, heart rate, high blood pressure, all these kind of things. You're intense, you're agitated, your voice is high pitched, and you don't even know it until you come into a different space where there might be some music, or someone looks you in your eye and smiles at you and kind of helps you regulate your system. You don't even know any of that. You don't even know that type of existence until you're confronted or someone engages you in that way.
True.
Brother Kelly, you want to take what you got from there?
So Brother Frank and Brother Roger both spoke on some very, very critical topics. And what I would say is this: in working with young people,
I think Brother Kelly froze a little bit. Either I froze or you froze. There he is. Oh, you're back, Kelly. You got muted there for a second. So continue.
Okay. All I was saying is they want structure.
Yes.
They are begging for structure. And as a lot of us, and me and well, I didn't grow up with my father. So space, identify the streets help me identify with things. But as you get older, like it's if you listen to your body, it will point you in the right direction many times. But I think one of the things that we have to make sure we talk about is the deconstruction of what we put in our body, which is food, and then what we consume on television and the radio. And I listen to some music today, but I also make sure I had conversations with my daughters about what this music is saying, right? And when we can do that, they'll talk with you. Those things align you to position them to move accordingly. Because our job is to not only model the appropriate behavior, but to engage in dialogue that focuses on critical decisions and critical thought processes, so that when we move and leave, that they're able to step into that space as a young adult and make good decisions.
You know what? One of those things, and this goes. You said something, Kelly, about um, putting things into our bodies, and I'm gonna go right to Roger's wheelhouse when it comes to substance abuse. When people out there, I'm smoking, I'm good. I got mine, I'm chilling, and nothing bothers me. They don't know they're being affected with the infection.
That's right. That's right. Once you start putting that chemicals and all that stuff in your body, just as we know, the central nervous system and all that stuff plays a big part in that. And you start to lose yourself. You think this is a great way to get over mass pain. And then you just forget about yourself. You forget about everything. I'm talking about this is how they get you. When you see someone's hurting like that and they putting that stuff in their body, because I can speak firsthand on that. I used to drink alcohol, but I was numbing. I was masking pain, as I saw call it. You angry and you don't even know what you're angry at. You just sitting there, you just numbing yourself out from a pain that you can't even recognize because you don't even want to take the time out to understand what's going on. And then when it's too late, when your body starts depleting, your liver starts shutting down. If you smoke, your health goes bad, your lungs and all that. Then you finally wake up and say, wow, I shouldn't have done that. Or something got to happen traumatically for you to stop, instead of just saying, okay, people just don't jump up every day happy and put stuff in their body that don't supposed to be there.
So. One of the things that I've noticed with even talking with people about the emotional reaction and understanding the chemicals you put in your body, understanding the anger you have not faced with, and leaning into the traumatic trauma that you have to heal from, right? You don't have to get over trauma. You have to heal trauma.
Yeah, that's right.
And there's a total different way of looking at it, of like, oh, I can get through trauma. I can get over trauma. No, we have to heal trauma. And that doesn't mean avoiding it. And if I have not been, as a young level, been mentally developed and to recognize that I am traumatized, then that's why I'm burning my own stuff. I'm committing the acts of violence that I'm committing. I am hurting people that shouldn't be hurt. And I don't know how to care for not only myself, but for other people. Now, Brother Frank, that's a problem in the Black community as a whole. Now, individually, someone says, yeah, man, I'm fucked up and I know I need help. Another brother may say, yeah, I'm trying to work it out. But as a collective community, we are not owning up to that. And I think that's a mental health problem.
No, I totally agree. And that's where especially on the community level, I think more spaces like this, I think more leadership, the leaders that we do have to continue to embody and push a mental health agenda, and that in all the spaces, in the community spaces, in the churches. I know in the past, some churches and people who are sometimes overly religious separate that from mental health. And to me, they're one and the same. One isn't better than the other. We don't need to separate them. They're one and the same in my book, or people will overly rely on one versus the other. And you need the spiritual, religious, and the mental health, or look at them as one and the same. So I think on the community level, that is where the leaders have to be comfortable pushing a mental health agenda and integrating it with all the other aspects of health. It doesn't have to be a separate thing. People again stigmatize depression and anxiety, or a lot of us will go in and say, oh, I think what I get a lot, when I was a little bit younger, it took me a long time to realize I was having panic attacks. I was like, it's gotta be my heart. Let me go to my doc. And every time he was looking at me and he was a brother, he would just shake his head and like stress. I'm like, all right. I'm like, no, it's my heart. I need you to do an EKG, an MRI. And he's like, you're clean. Everything's good. And it took me a long time to go to my therapist, who I've been seeing off and on since I've been 22. His name is Philip Coleman in Oakland. He's a brother. Took me about 3 years to finally realize, man, this is my mind controlling my body and vice versa, and I just had my own ego. I couldn't imagine, my mind is making my body have these physiological symptoms in that way.
You know what, Brother Frank? It took you now, and here's the thing. It took you 2 years. You were seeing someone, and it took you 2 years.
Yes, sir.
We are in the new revolution, I call it. This is the new revolution. Power to and if it took you 2 years, I don't know, and I'm gonna each of you answer this, and Kelly, I'm going to you first. Do we have 2 years for this to take shape? Could we afford the 2 years? Because in those 2 years, if you take the hostility that Black men already feel, you take the alcohol and the drugs they're already drinking, you take the miscommunication they're already having with their relationship, I don't know. There's a lot of blood in the streets if it's going to take. It took Brother Frank 2 years, and he knew he was seeing someone. So Kelly, Brother Kelly, what's up?
So for me, at the time we're in right now, I don't think we have. I mean, we have 2 years because there's always a option.
Yes.
But that option is not the best option because timing is everything in life. And we're at a time where opportunities exist for us to rewrite wrongs. And so many people have died for us to be able to be in the space that we're in today. And we can rewrite the generational trauma of the past if we're able to connect on a cellular level with people so that they understand that, like, they got options, they got opportunities. Particularly in COVID, everybody's in home, so this information, the same way they use television to program us to destroy ourselves, to Brother Frank's point, we have to use social media. And that means sometimes for some of us who are traditional clinicians, I've used the word emotional wellness as opposed to mental health if it's going to serve my purpose to connect with more people. And I'm sick and tired of seeing young Black males, young Black women, young people of all denominations not address mental health issues, not be aware. The same way I can remember music or a rap song, I can remember information using that same melody because music is healing as well. And so to answer your point, personally, I don't think we have time anymore. I think we address this thing and we continue to put out information that's informative like we're having right now. We do it on a grassroots level because historically, a lot of people get to a certain space and they go grass top. But if people don't understand the information, and how can I retain or apply the information? I'm not talking about digesting and regurgitating.
Right. To apply it. You actually got to internalize it. And this is what I love to do. Get the information, understand the information, and put that information into an action. Mm-hmm. And this is why I love doing Black Coffee Conversation or my other podcast, Bridges Live, because if you can hear something and still not know, you can think you understand something and still not apply. So all those pieces, they're still broken. And that means you're still broken. Go ahead, Roger.
Real quick, Doc.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say the beauty behind the conversation or the coffee tables, if we got them at a seat at the table, now they have a voice in the game. So even if I'm not getting it from the beginning, by me listening to you three amazing men, eventually my subconscious mind will begin to be able to conceptualize this so that I can apply it in my space. And then I'm going to encourage other people to come and listen, because it wasn't transactional, it was transformational for me, which means it can be transformational for you.
So go ahead,
Yes.
Roger. So, Brother Roger, how do you want to add on to that?
No, likewise, like Brother Kelly and Brother Frank. As you sit and listen and you gather more information, it's more you can go out into your community, relay it to the young ones. It's just been amazing being on this cast. And I appreciate it. But the thing is, we, as getting back to the black men, they got to be more older black leaders.
Okay.
They only mimic what they see. If we're not doing our thing in life and now we're not in place and doing what we're supposed to do, then there's no way they're gonna follow anything we say.
So we dropped the ball, and I know I have a black mentoring group, and I believe that we dropped the ball on giving back, teaching back, and I don't know what the psychic of that is. I could say for my personal self, I thought I was doing good, and I surpassed other young black men and never said, and I thought I would say something to them, but I didn't take the time to know that they were listening to me. You know what I mean? So, because if they didn't grasp it, it doesn't matter what good stuff you passed on. It's kind of like you gave them food, they looked at it and be like, nigga, please, right?
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah, what are you doing?
That? You didn't take that. So, Brother Frank, what's a process that black men can start with a process? What's the first process?
I think again, we definitely need, because it's not like, yes, I am getting more calls from people and those kind of things, but those are the people, those are the people who are self-motivated. They have the volition. And so I call it jam up or therapeutic confrontational engagement. I think you got to get their attention. And typically what I see, I don't know statistically what it means. And I don't know if anyone's ever run this kind of experiment, but typically when I have an office in Oakland, and there's been times where I've had confrontations, or I'm on the bus and young brothers are doing something disrespectful, and it's kind of affecting me because I'm with my daughters, or somebody threw something on the bus and it hit my shoe, and I'm in this space where, do I say something? Their energy is affecting my space. So more often than not, I engage on some kind of level. Obviously I can't engage, or I'm gonna put myself in jeopardy. I'm not volatile, but I do think it takes some kind of level of intense therapeutic engagement, and not just therapeutic in the office, therapeutic in the community. I think it takes that kind of that level of engagement. And more often than not, when I have had those kind of confrontations, one of them will say, "Man, I'm sorry, sir," or "Look, hey, I didn't mean that," or sometimes I'll get clientele who, because of their conditioning, they want to they bring me how they've been experienced. They want to say, "Hey, what's up, bruh?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not your bruh. I'm your brother, but I'm not your bruh right now." There's a professional man-to-man or man-to-child boundary that we need to establish that's laden with respect and healthy boundaries, But I get it from where they've come from. Some of the older men who are boys in their mind have treated them like peers, and so it just takes that kind of generational kind of transformational work to kind of reestablish some healthy boundaries and healthy hierarchies so that they can rely upon us in a mature way. So that's where my mind goes with that question.
You brought up something about peers and mentoring. We and it's a community, and it seemed, I'm going to bottle this up. We've had churches, we have fraternal orders. We've had college education. We've had Black teachers, professional teachers. We have professional men out there, professional lawyers, all of it. We special professional sports, and all of it. If you look at it from an extended lens, you'd be like, why are they so broken? What is the problem? Like, how is this still such a huge problem when, like Roger said, we don't have anyone to look up to? But wait a minute. I just named almost like 10 things where Black men have been well, and still young Black men, broken Black men, still feel like they're alone. So what are we missing? And this is thrown out to the guy, all of you. So whoever wants to jump on, I mean, because it seems like, because that's where I think where the white community or the other communities are looking at us, they're like, you guys are just screwed up. I don't care, you have this, and this, and yet you're still complaining about we need something.
Look, I definitely want to step into this, and I want to step into this because here's part of the problem sometimes.
Yeah.
We as Black people want to get out of a condition so bad that we forget where we started from.
Yeah.
And if I don't give grace to people, and if I have not healed, but yet now I sit in a position of a therapist, a social worker, or a psychologist, and the sister, brilliant sister, Dr. Joy DeGruy, talks about post-traumatic slave syndrome, right? And us in our socialization, I haven't healed, so I'm projecting my issues and my challenges on my community, as opposed to being accountable, healing through my process, and then being able to meet you in the space that you're in, and understanding that there are what they call natural supports in that space. And so when I can leverage that, and to your point earlier about leveraging, because when we say a village, we haven't had a village for a long time.
There you go.
And so I know when I had a village, they held me accountable. And I can't be an OG if I'm leading you down the wrong path. My job is to push you forward. And my kids, I have two, but I have many. Every young person I come into contact with is essentially my child. And if you talk and listen enough, because every person you meet is both your student and your teacher, sometimes I got to shut up and listen without trying to give advice at that moment. And that's only when I'm not in my clinical mode, Frank. But in the other modes, people invariably have the answers to their own problems if you allow and coach them through that process. Brother Roger, dealing in that substance abuse space, knows that, like, at the very core of everything, at its roots, we need to get to the roots.
Root to the production.
Our Western philosophy is to deal with the band-aid or what's on the surface. And I think if we do that and continue to model that, then we'll see some significant gains and return on investment, because these young people want to make us proud, but they're going to try to push us away because of the trust issues. And I say young people, but there's young people and young people in mind, because I can be 40 years old, still stuck in one of my developmental stages, right?
That's right.
So I had to throw that out there, because I've seen social workers who may have made a statement like, well, I don't let my child see his dad because he come around in the hoopty. I mean, what does the hoopty have to do with the presence?
Right.
It's one thing to be present, and it's the other thing to have presence. So I can't just be there. I got to be engaged, involved, having conversation, dialogue. So I mean, I'm gonna shut off because y'all done got me started now.
Go ahead, Roger. What do you got?
No, I like to say that he's right. When it comes to substance abuse and stuff like that, the core, you got to get to the root of the problem. This something that happened in their childhood that really that mess with them, and they don't know how to deal with it. And most people, they feed off that as they get older. They don't know how to deal with it. Like I said, massive pain, and they just keep going and keep going and keep going. And that thing, the problem turned to addiction. Now you fighting two things because you don't want to deal with what happened in your past, and you got to kill that demon before you can go to something else. So, but as in the Black community like that, it's most young Black males was fatherless. I mean, they didn't get the toy they want. It could be just as simple as that. They didn't get the favorite toy where their mother didn't hug them enough. It can goes back, and it's just sad to see people that go through that pain and they want to cry, as Dr. Frank and Dr. And Little said, Brother Little said earlier, and you has put it out there well. When they see another man cry and they look up at that man, then they can open up and cry too.
Mm-hmm.
They will feel comfortable to cry.
Yeah. Yeah, and another thing, and this all ties in. I'm trying to think of a piece of literature, a movie that depicts it. Django. I don't care much for Quentin Tarantino, but the movie did depict, kind of contemporary. I'm speaking about Black men now. Sometimes we still embody these toxic house slave, field slave mentalities, and especially us that are all elevated professionally. It can be subconscious, it can be overt, and sometimes we either don't want to, we get competitive with each other. It's not just brothers in the streets or the have-nots that have this mentality. I see it in professional circles as well. And so I think sometimes on the out, to answer that question, other cultures from the outside are looking like, yeah, you got all these community leaders, churches, politicians, and there's no solidarity. Sometimes I still think we're trapped again in that slave mentality, and it's just, we just have to bring that to awareness in some of these circles, and we're all on the same playing field, whether you're a brother off the street, whether you have an elevated status because you've got some professional things happening, or you're a therapist or a counselor. I always do my best to stay in a role of professional authority for my clientele. But as Brother Roger and Brother Kelly were saying, I also, I'm learning as well. And if I create a certain space, therapeutic or community, they do have their own answers. And you just want to reinforce that so that when they go away from you, they're empowered, as opposed to, I can't exist without him. You know what I mean? So you want to create that independence. But I do see in my circles, sometimes the brothers, I question that, like, okay, where am I contributing to this house slave, field slave mentality? Am I cutthroat? Am I being competitive? Am I insecure in my space? Do I think he's insecure? I'm always thinking about that in some of these spaces.
If we could get, and if the brothers could hear one thing, and that is to get out from yourself with your ego so you can heal. I hope they hear that. I also hear on Black Coffee Conversation, as we have this conversation about Black men mental health, is that you need to get a self-check. Not check yourself, which is damn different, is to get a self-check. And that means to walk into one of these offices, and if it's a brother, you go in there, and a Black man, you're like, hey, I need a Black therapist. Let's get it straight. I need a Black male therapist, or I need a Black male mentor, and ask yourself, brother, senior brother, because we're talking about, when you talk about youth, we talk about mental, right? We're not talking about age. We're talking about the mental. And if I need a self-check, I can ask this person, can you check me? And if they could just do that, we would move forward.
Yep.
I agree.
I really agree with that.
So can we get them to do that? Do we need to hand out cards? Do we need to open up a chicken fry place so they can walk in? I don't care what the stigma is. How do we get them in here?
I think I think all the above. And again, I sometimes it comes through some level of intense, engagement, but that's when you get people's attention. Particularly with populations who are at the margins of society, or who have been ignored, who have gone to the DMV or to the Social Security office or to other health professionals' offices, and they've been ignored. The worst thing I see is when someone is acting out, reaching out for help, particularly a brother, and because people are afraid, they don't respond to it. And then a lot of times they tantrum more, or they're acting out more, and there's no transformational space, to use Brother Kelly's term, for them, for someone to engage them, to let them know they're not toxic, their behavior is toxic. And I think you're asking for help, but you're doing it in such a volatile way, you're off-putting, and I think it's okay for us to tell these brothers, you are off-putting, or this is self-destructive, but that's not a push away. That's not rejection. We're saying that in an experience near way, not an experience distancing way. You're off-putting, but come here and sit next to me and let's figure out why you're off-putting. You know what I mean? And that might mean sometime, hey, you're too volatile today. Get out of this space. If you're working with the boys group, go sit down. It's no different than a coach saying, you know what, go hit the showers early today, but I'll see you tomorrow morning. You know what I mean? They need that message, that attachment and that bond. Go hit the showers today. You're not ready today, but I'll see you tomorrow morning. A lot of us get from conditioning, go hit the shower. You know what? Don't even go hit the showers. Just go. You know what I mean? And so that's that, it's like sometimes it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. A lot of times I get these brothers that behave in ways that reinforce I'm unlovable, I'm rejected, I'm toxic. You know what I mean? And it takes a wise eye and wise mind to be able to to get underneath that. And it just needs to be more of us to be able to see that. And we have to, fortunately or unfortunately, we have to educate our non-white allies who might want to do the work but don't have the skill. We got to educate them until there's more of us in the schools and teaching. And last time I checked, I think the mental health, the Black mental health males maybe comprise 0.7% of the mental health population. So we got to teach these allies. Some of them want to learn. Some of them are goofy and overzealous and trip on their own 2 feet. But we got to teach them, and we got to confront them and say, if you want to learn, this is what you got to do. Deal with your stuff, sit back, take a seat, follow my direction. So we do have to teach these institutions and these folks until we can integrate, and that 0.7% becomes 1% or 2% or 5%,
Wow.
Go ahead, Kelly.
Look, Brother Frank just hammered something. And so I have this picture of a specific male or woman who may be dealing with those mental health challenges, right? But then I also think, when I'm thinking of Brother Roger and the substance abuse problem, the one thing that most people tend to forget about sometimes is the consummate professional like Brother Frank, right? Who is a renowned clinician. He still deals with the weight of being a Black man,
yes,
the other stress of his profession. And so sometimes it may not be the substance abuse that we use as the addiction. I may inundate myself, overworking myself, and not giving myself any self-care to be able to look. I'm tired of hearing the word resilient, because resilient,
I'm sick of it. Done.
to a straight line without any recharging. And if I don't recharge, it's just like being in that hospital room when I flatline, I'm killing myself. And you spoke to it earlier, Brother Frank. Like when I'm having these symptoms, which are physical symptoms that's tied to my mental challenges or stress at that moment. If I don't get it in check at some point, I'm going. So we really have to make sure that we are impressing upon all Black males to like check your vitals.
Yep.
You know, we're going to end up cutting this off. We've been on for about an hour. Black men's mental health. We're going to keep beating this drum so it rings, right? It keeps ringing. We need to champion this. Every month we're going to have Black mental health, men's Black mental health. We're going to have Black women's mental health. Later this afternoon, I have what you call sister talk, where the sisters get on and just have a conversation and just bang it out, because we're developing our community. We're talking about things that we had heard we talked about. We whisper to talk about. We've read it in an article. We hear some people championing other things, but it's not being spoken. It's weird. It's funny. But so I want to end this out with, I want to say thank you to all the Black professional men out there, all the professional people out there, our brothers and sisters who, white or Black or whoever, who are helping us build a community of nation of people, right? Because if individually is sick, then we are sick. And we got to get out of that slave mentality, because we are post-traumatic slaves, right? We're coming out of a trauma. So let's bow our heads and let's pray, and then we're going to take off. If anyone wants to contact you, please contact Dr. Paul, holisticscience.com. And if you guys want to get in touch with Dr. Frank and Roger or Kelly, please contact me. I'll send you guys all the information that you want. I know you're in Oakland and you're both in the Carolinas, one's in Charlotte. So let's bow our heads. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us strong Black men together. Thank you for listening to us. Thank you for hearing our words. Speak to our brothers and sisters out there and let them be heard that you're not alone. Let the sickness be felt that you can heal. You have people out here who is championing for you, who are screaming for you. We don't know who you are, my brothers and sisters, but if you walk to another brother and get your mental health checked, we will hear you. We will put you into that safe space so you don't take a life. You don't take another life. You don't take your life, and get that checked, because until we build our individual self, we will stay broken as a community of men, individuals, and as a nation. In Heavenly Father, Jesus Christ, we pray, amen. Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you so much.
Amen. Nice to meet you guys.
Nice meeting you guys. Made my morning. Thank you.
You guys have a great evening, and I'll talk to you guys later individually. And God bless, man.
Yes, sir.
God bless.
Take
Be
care,
blessed,
brother.
brothers.